If you're rated below 2000, then blunders will lose a lot of your games. And those blunders are so annoying because after the fact, they even make you feel stupid. Once you leave your queen hanging and your opponent just takes that queen, think, how could I miss that? That's such an obvious move, but why does it keep happening over and over and over again? In this video, I want to tackle exactly that question. I want to dive deep into blunders and define them, then understand where they come from, and last but obviously not least, give you actionable steps you can do to avoid blundering in the future, or at least to reduce your blunder rate. Before we get into how you can stop blundering, we need to actually understand what blunders are. And this is where I disagree with Lichess and Chesscom. So when you play a game and you analyze this game with the analysis function of Chesscom or Lichess, you'll get something that you can see right here, right? There will be double question mark moves, inaccuracies, and so on and so forth. And if you scroll through this game, this is from a former student of mine, you can see there are a lot of double question mark moves, or as you see here, blunders, right? But actually, not every double question mark move is actually a blunder. Let's talk about this by looking through these moves. So here we get a position. I'll turn this board around. Okay, so my student is playing the white pieces, playing the Vienna, making Gotham chess proud. That wasn't by me. That was before we worked together. I don't recommend that opening. And he plays d4 in this position right here. d4, putting the pawn in the center, grabbing central space, and aiming to develop the bishop. And the computer is saying this is a blunder? How does this work? What happens, right? So here, what happens is that the analysis is giving blunder because there is a big change in the engine evaluation between the move d4 that my student played and the move e5. That is very strong because the knight doesn't have the d5, e4, g4, or h5 squares, right? These are all protected. So the knight needs to drop back, and only now we can play d4, for example, or maybe first knight f3 to avoid this check, and then we play d4. Now, this is not a blunder because it's not so obvious. Depending on which rating you're on, e5 is not the most obvious move in the position, and so d4 is a totally fine move. We'll get soon to what my definition of blunder is, but this, according to me, is not a blunder, not something you need to worry about. Now, black plays d6, and again we see blunder. And again, this is not a proper blunder because if you're looking at the game afterwards, right, and you see d6, it's not like you're going, oh yeah, it's so obvious d6 is bad. Why is d6 bad? What exactly? And what other move would you have to play? Well, you have to play bishop to b4, pinning this knight, attacking this pawn, but it's not like black is completely winning, right? Like white can still defend this pawn, for example, and the game continues. So that's not really a blunder either. So if we move on in the game, bishop takes f4, bishop g4. You see there a lot of question marks, inaccuracies. You should just forget about those for now. We're talking about blunders, okay? That's the most important thing you need to work on. Knight f3, queen e7, okay, bishop d3, knight c6. We're getting to the point where finally a blunder, a proper blunder is happening, okay? So in this position, black moves the knight out to c6 and attacks the pawn on d4. The knight is controlling the square on d4, but there is a pin. So here, black's threat is just capturing a free pawn on d4. Most players should be able to see that threat. What my student does is simply ignoring that threat and castling and gets a double question mark. And for the first time, yes, we can say this is a blunder. Because when black takes on d4, you can face palm yourself because you probably immediately realize you can't recapture. You just blundered a pawn, right? That's a good thing to say. Well, it's not a good thing to say, but it's a proper thing to say. I blundered a pawn. If you say, I blundered not taking a chance, that doesn't sound correct even. That's completely inexistent, right? Okay, so I blundered a pawn. So this position here, you made a blunder. Let's move on. I just jumped to important positions. Here, white is to move now. White has initiative. White has kind of counterplay for that pawn that we blundered away. So what is my student doing? Pushing e5. Can you see why this is a blunder? The knight is taken on d5. The knight doesn't have any piece protecting it anymore. And this again, we just gave away a full piece, right? Before e5, this knight was controlled. Now it's not controlled anymore. e5 is a blunder. Okay, so that's so important when you go through a game like that, that not just everything that gets a double question mark, it's just like, oh my God, I was so stupid. But actually think to yourself like, do I understand this immediately? Is this kind of a facepalm moment? Because if it is, then it's a blunder. But if it's not obvious immediately why this is actually a bad move, then it's not a blunder. It's just the engine found a very strong way or a different strong continuation, or maybe you missed something, whatever it can be, but then you can learn from it. So here is what Chess.com says a blunder is. This is from their own homepage. I quote, "In chess, a blunder happens when a player makes a move that negatively affects their position in a significant way." That's what we saw, right? Double question mark, boom, the engine showed something better. "In many cases, a blunder can cause a player to lose material or be checkmated. But it can also lead to a strategically lost position. Failing to take advantage of an opponent's mistake is also sometimes described as a blunder." End of quote. And I just think that's not true at all. And my kind of idea on why they have this definition is because with all the computer analysis, it's impossible to understand if a player should have seen a move. So just it's easier to say when the engine drops 2 points, we give double question mark. That means it's a blunder, right? It's way easier to do it technically, but it's not true and it's not useful for you guys at home. So here's what I think a blunder is. I think a blunder is a big mistake, likely losing material that you should have avoided in a game. Okay, that's it. So it must be a mistake from your side. It's not a chance. A missed chance is not a blunder. At least when I grew up playing chess, my coach never said you blundered not winning the queen. That's you blundered the queen is a sentence that you can say. You blundered not winning the queen, no sentence at all. So it must be something that you are giving away and you're making a huge mistakes. And after seeing that mistake, you immediately say, oh yeah, that's obvious. I should have seen that. Okay, so that's super important. And in this video now, we'll just focus on these obvious mistakes, because reducing all the mistakes or avoiding all the big mistakes, I mean, come on guys, I can't do that in a video. I can't do that in 20, right? So you really need to focus for now on the mistakes that are facepalm type of mistakes that make you feel stupid. When you avoid these, already you will see a lot of improvements in your game and you will feel much less stupid. Then you can slowly but surely work on your tactics, work on your chess understanding and everything else to avoid big mistakes as well that weren't as obvious, one step at a time. Reason number one why you're blundering is you're not playing with the proper focus. This is super important because this happens to basically everyone. And yes, I include myself in this. Since I finished my chess career, I retired, I lost over 150 points on Chess.com in the Blitz rating because I'm just playing when I'm distracted. And when I'm distracted, even as a Grandmaster, I'm more prone to blundering stuff away. I make many very obvious mistakes to me just because I have YouTube open while I play a game of chess, or I think about stuff while I play a game of chess. So if you're not playing with full focus, then that might be the biggest reason why you're blundering. Because, well, if it's obvious to you after the fact, it just needs to be that you're not using your full brain power during a game. Here are a few examples. You're playing in the evening when you're super tired after a difficult day at work. That's probably not going to end well. I'm not saying you should never play chess if you're tired, but maybe play on an account you don't care about the rating, or just play without rating in the first place. So you don't care about the results, and then you play when you're tired, and you basically accept that blunders are a thing. Second reason can be that you're tilting. Right? Actually, blunders cause more blunders. There's this saying that a mistake seldomly comes alone, right? So you make a blunder, you lose a game. Now you get emotionally tilted. You're like, oh, I'm so upset. I need to win that rating back. What you're doing is playing more games without proper emotional control. Your focus is going away because you're kind of tilting and you're losing game after game after game. That's very bad. Another reason is you're just playing in a circumstance where focusing is not really possible. Let's say you're at home and children are running around and need your attention. Probably you can focus for 2-3 moves, then some kid is coming to you, hey, you have to do this, you're watching away, you come back, you make a move, boom, you missed that the queen was attacking your knight, you blundered a knight, right? Something like this happens a lot where people are just playing chess when they shouldn't, at work or when you're commuting on your phone but there is no good internet connection, or just whatever reason you can think about right now. If you're not having proper focus, it's better to just not play chess. So when you think about organizing your chess training, make sure that you use the time where you can focus the best for your playing. This way you avoid these nasty blunders. And here are a few do's and don'ts just to improve your focus and have less blunders. Play when you're fresh. Ideally earlier in the day and not super late after work or after something intense with your brain. Play in a quiet environment, don't have TV on, don't have YouTube videos next to it, don't have 17 tabs open. That brings us to point number 3. Give the game your full attention. Whenever you feel like, okay, I have 30 minutes or 20 minutes, however long your game takes, and I can spend these invested in my chess, then start a game. If you already know that somebody will distract you in between that game, during that game, don't even start, because the likelihood that you get distracted and then blunder, it just makes it so much higher. And then point number 4, do number 4 is take breaks. It's so important not to play these huge long streaks, 3 hours, 4 hours of game after game after game, where at some point you just get so emotionally invested, there's no more focus, blunders left and right. And that brings us to the logical don'ts. Don't play when you're tired or stressed. Don't play on your phone, and especially while traveling when the internet connection could be bad. Don't keep clicking new games just because you lost and you want to win back the rating. That usually only makes it worse. And don't try to squeeze in games when you don't have enough time. You need to have proper focus if you want to avoid these blunders. That brings me to reason number 2 why you're still blundering. And this is limited time or time trouble. If you're not having enough time for a good sequencing, for a good thought process, it's very likely that you will blunder something obvious. And when you have this, usually people think, oh, I shouldn't panic when I'm in time trouble. No, I don't agree on that. I think it is human that when you see seconds ticking down, that you will get stressed at some point. So the better solution is to try to not get in time trouble in the first place. One very, very easy solution is just don't play bullet or blitz. Basically, you put yourself in time trouble from move number 1. So if you have a lot of problems, especially if you're still lower rated, let's say below 1500 on the online sites, then it's better not to play these blitz or bullet games, because likely it will just be a blunder festival, and who will be quicker and who will win the game with some random blunder from the opponent. Not really what makes you better at chess. So use longer time controls. Now, also in longer time controls, you can get into time trouble, and this is what happens. So here we have a position from a student of the Simplified Chess Improvement System, and this student gets a winning position with black. Yes, we are down a pawn, but you can see that white's king is very, very weak, and we have a lot of pressure on the white king. The ideal solution, you can shortly stop the video if you want to think about it for yourself, is to just take the bishop on d5. The knight is taking on d5, and now we're taking that pawn, and look at this. Look at this, we get a checkmate, basically forced. Yes, white can give a spite check, we move the king away, and now there will be a checkmate on either g2 or h1. So that's beautiful. But this student had little time left. 30 seconds to be precise, against the white's 7 minutes. So what happens now, the next couple of moves, you can just see that it's just pure panic. So it's not about chess skills, what my student does here, but it's just about pure panic. So we want to avoid this. What happens in the game is bishop takes f3, sees the right idea, but oops, bishop is taken, and that's a blunder, right? That's a facepalm moment. During the game, oh my God, I blundered my bishop, right? And so pushes the pawn, bishop takes b7, another pawn away. Now knight e4, trying to attack, right? Some last ditch, I'm so good with arrows. Some last ditch effort to attack, but what does he miss? Knight takes e4, okay, rook takes, and now either rook is hanging, right? So again, blundering a full rook as well, taking this, and now after rook e8, bishop c6, he saw enough and resigned. That's what happens when you're low on time. You need to work on not getting into time trouble in the first place, and we'll get to how you can do that later on. But that's super important. Time trouble itself, playing better in time trouble is not really the solution. I see a lot of people saying, oh, I need to, practice bullet games so I get better in time trouble, or I need to make puzzle rush so I can get better in time trouble. No. That's utopic. That's like, I don't know, you're trying to make the super hard thing instead of just stop getting in time trouble, right? It's like, even I, as a Grandmaster, when I'm in time trouble, when I'm nervous, I'm very prone to blundering. That's just what will happen. Yes, I will play better than you guys at home, but I will still play very bad compared to my normal chess. So the solution here is stopping to get into time trouble and not trying to get better in time trouble. Reason number 3 you're still blundering is that your focus is not on the right things on the chessboard. So yes, you're focusing properly. Probably you don't get into time trouble, but you somehow get drawn into one area of the board, right? We often hear this term tunnel vision, and you just totally forget about the rest. And I would put this into the bracket of faulty thought process, right? So you don't have a clear thought process, but your mind somehow goes into one direction and suddenly you realize, what the heck, I blundered, right? So let's look at some easy examples here. That's the starting position. We play knight c6, and imagine our opponent goes crazy and plays queen g4, right? So here with black, we have a very nice tactic already. That's why you shouldn't move the queen so early. d5, right? And now from the white's perspective, I can turn around the board as well. From white's perspective, some people are seeing that the d pawn just moved. The d pawn is attacking the bishop and the d pawn is attacking the pawn. So there is a vision just on what this pawn is doing. And then white just takes, oh yeah, free pawn, great. Oops, our queen is gone. It's like, well, how did this happen, right? This is what is called sometimes second order effects. That's a term I learned from Aidan Rayner. I'll put a link to his stuff in the description. So second order effects simply means that one piece does something and uncovers, like kind of unleashes the bishop behind, right? So the d pawn is moving, but actually the bishop is attacking the queen. So it's way easier to see that the pawn is now attacking a bishop and a pawn. It's way harder to see that the bishop is attacking the queen. So that's why proper thought process is important, or just asking yourself, what changed after my opponent played this move? This is super important. I can give you some more examples. For example, okay, these are kind of, weird looking examples, but I hope they bring over the point. White is playing rook a3, thinking, oh yeah, this knight, is not attacked. Now, black plays knight to g6, and you're just looking at the knight. You're like, okay, knight wants to come here. Let me play g3 so the knight doesn't come here or here anymore. And suddenly, boom, the bishop is unleashed again, right? So it's super important that you pay attention to not only what the immediate move that your opponent is doing makes, but if it changes anything like in the position as well. Mostly it's rooks or bishops or the queen that start seeing something that they didn't see before. And when this happens, well, you need to be careful because something might be hanging. Last but not least, let's go to this variation right here. You play knight f3, knight f6, and now you go knight h4. Again, you don't see that this knight could potentially be hanging. After knight takes e4, you go, let's say d3, and you miss again that your knight on h4 is hanging, right? So there's always these kind of second order effects that you need to be careful of. Now, the second way of faulty thought process or of kind of tunnel visioning is this example right here. Let's say this is black to move and you are playing knight to a5. You have a clear idea. Let's trade the queen. and then let's take this pawn. So you're looking at your own ideas, right? You're focused, you're thinking about chess for sure, but you're only looking at yourself. So now your opponent plays queen g4, and you thought, well, I wanted to trade queens and then take on b3. So, oh my god, my opponent is so bad, I can just take on b3. Amazing. Boom. Oops, checkmate. So what happens sometimes is that you're so focused on your own stuff that you forget checking shortly what your opponent is doing. And I actually had one of my worst blunders in my career that is a little bit similar. Let's go check it out. So here in this position, this is chaotic, I understand. It will get very easy soon. I played knight takes g3, so I took that pawn. My opponent goes knight to g5. Now, I look at my own things, but I also look at one thing that my opponent does. I thought, oh, the rook is hanging. So I start calculating. That was a long game. I was a FIDE master already playing for the Swiss national team. And see what happens. I go queen c6. I'm like calculating all these deep lines. Then my opponent takes his queen. I'm like, huh? Why would he move his queen? I don't think queen c4 is a good move. He moves his queen and moves it over and moves it over. I'm like, huh? What is happening? Oh. Checkmate. That was a long game. That was a classical chess game, and I was a strong FIDE master already, and just completely ignored that knight g5 was preparing queen h7 checkmate. It was not just attacking the rook, but there was a checkmate threat. So that can sometimes happen. And what is the solution? Here, it's having a proper thought process. It would absolutely not fit in this video if I started talking about the correct thought process, but just to give a simple idea. When your opponent makes a move, first thing you're doing is looking at your opponent's idea, okay? Instead of thinking about yourself, you're asking yourself shortly, what is my opponent doing, okay? In this case, you should then be able to see and really take some time to go through that. If we go back here as well, you can also ask what changed in the position, right? Queen g4. Let's not think about knight takes b3 first, but first think what happens. And there is a threat on g7, so we need to stop that. So that can help already solving a lot of blunders because you're having this faulty thought process. You can't wait to come to your own ideas, but sadly, you blunder. And that brings me to the most hidden reason that you're still blundering, but actually I think this is also super widespread, so that's super important. And this reason is you're overcomplicating stuff. Or in other words, you're trying to play better than you can. And in this position, for example, that's from a student again, we can see that white or black just attacked this white bishop on g5. Now, if you're just trying to play simple chess, you will move this bishop away, either on h4 or e3, and you would do very well. But my student had an idea. Wait a moment. Oh, I know there is some discovery. This bishop might be hanging. I could take here, and came up with this move, knight takes e5. Actually, only gets one question mark. Interesting. So this move, knight takes e5, actually worked in the game because the opponent completely missed that the queen on g6 was hanging. But that's not happening all the time, okay? So knight takes e5. If black does pawn takes e5, we take on g4. We won a pawn. Amazing, right? Whoops, the bishop is still hanging. And now we lost a piece. So sometimes when you're trying to do two smart things, when you're trying to find tactics where there are no tactics, you increase your blunder risk a lot. So that's why it's so important to play simple chess. I don't mean that you shouldn't go for tactics, but don't go for tactics that look too sophisticated. Every time you catch yourself thinking, that would be so amazing, or this move would be insane, then it's probably time to go away from this move, because it's very likely that you're hallucinating something and that somewhere there is an easy solution for your opponent to take advantage of it. So when your opponent attacks your bishop, unless you find a clear-cut tactic, something that obviously works, just drop back your bishop and don't worry about other things. That's keeping things simple, and it will help you so much because it will bring us also to the real good habits, the 2 habits you can do during the games to avoid blunders. Because when you keep things simple, you will get into less time trouble. And as we know, time trouble is one of the reasons of blundering. So you're not only not trying to be a genius, but you're also saving time, which leads you to less blunders. So in this video, you learned what a blunder actually is and what causes blunders. There are 4 reasons, right? We talked about focus. That one is pretty simple. Then we talked about time trouble. We talked about thought process. And last but not least, overcomplicating things. So now what are you doing to stop these causes? There are 2 simple habits I want you to perform as often as possible. Habit number 1 is the one I touched on already. It's playing simple chess. Don't try to overcomplicate things. Make it as a test, a trial. For the next few games or for the next week, just try to play what you think is a simple, logical move. Don't overdo it. Don't go for things that you don't fully understand. And see what it does to your blunders. Because 2 things are happening. 1, you're not playing these sophisticated tactical lines that probably you can't calculate. And 2, you are actually going to save time and have more energy and time to spot blunders or to spot easy tactical things later on in the game, which will reduce your blunders further. And then simple habit number 2 is what I call a blunder check. For every single move you're playing, and you try to keep this habit, it won't be completely automatic from the get-go, but this is a good habit to have. Whenever you try playing a move, don't rush playing this move, but shortly think to yourself, if I play this move, will my opponent have an easy tactical idea, right? You're just looking maybe even only for hanging pieces. So you can also ask yourself, if I play this move, will my opponent get a free piece? Or as my wife Alessia would say, a free cheese macaroni. If they get, well, better not playing this move. And if they don't, well, you probably have a decent, simple move, and you can play it and reduce your blunders this way. Before you try implementing this, playing with a good focus, playing simple chess, and having a blunder check routine, just want to warn you. This will probably fail sometimes, not because the strategies or the simple ideas I explained don't work, but because implementing them is not easy. That's in chess just normal. Implementation is actually hard. Getting a new habit is hard. So yes, now you know what you should do, but you don't just go play and never blunder again. And that's totally normal. So what I want you to do is just to become aware of what causes your blunders. You're trying to play with good focus. You're trying to play simple chess and you're trying to make a blunder check. And when you realize, oh, I blundered in this game, you analyze the game and you try understand what happened, what went wrong, what can you try in the next game to avoid this mistake. Don't expect that everything is perfect just because you watched one YouTube video on blunders. That's not going to happen, and I'm never going to promise something like that. And if you're wondering, how should I even analyze my games? I have absolutely no idea. Everybody tells me, but I have no idea how to do it. There will be a future video on exactly this. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and then I'll see you in the next one.